They broke into my house while I was at work, changed my locks, tore through my belongings, and left a smug note telling me to pick up my new keys. But what they didn't know was that every move they made was being recorded by the very system I built. I wasn't just another homeowner. They'd just declared war on a former Navy cyber defense officer who designed their entire surveillance network. They broke into my house and changed my locks while I was away, without a warrant, without my consent, and without a single ounce of shame. And I watched it happen live from a secured feed on my phone, every click of their tools echoing in my ears like gunfire. I stood frozen in the parking lot outside a client's building, my hands trembling as I stared at the footage. My front door, my porch, my home. Gone, violated, and waiting for me inside. Not a gas leak, not an emergency, just arrogance wrapped in roses and HOA letterhead. My name is Marcus Whitaker. I'm 42. I'm a former Navy cyber defense officer turned private security systems consultant. I specialize in designing layered digital and physical security systems for banks, government agencies, and yes, gated communities just like Rosewood Bluffs. 3 years ago, when the HOA board was under reasonable leadership, they contracted my firm to build out their surveillance infrastructure, high-resolution perimeter cameras, digital access logs, motion-triggered alerts, the works. What they didn't realize was that the contract included a maintenance clause. Buried on page 19 was my retained right to limited back-end access for diagnostics for upgrades for support. It was standard, invisible, and fully legal. And it would soon become my greatest weapon. Back then, Rosewood Bluffs had been peaceful, quiet, a little obsessive about landscaping maybe, but nothing I couldn't handle. I moved in 2 years ago, planting lavender along the edge of my walkway in honor of my mother, who always said it kept bad spirits away. Turns out she was right about the spirits at least, but not about the people. Everything changed 6 months ago when Evelyn Duval was elected HOA president. Evelyn was the type of woman who turned pruning into politics. Always in a crisp linen blouse, always holding a clipboard like it was a sheriff's badge. She took one look at my lavender hedge and wrinkled her nose like I'd planted thistles. Her first community-wide improvement came 3 weeks into her term, a new rule banning work from home past 7 p.m. The glow from laptop screens disrupts the natural serenity of our rose gardens, the memo read. I laughed when I read it, then stopped laughing when I got a written warning for violating it 2 nights later. I was on a late call with a team in Singapore, and apparently a neighbor reported my excessive window illumination. Then came the citations. The lavender non-compliant species. My flower pots clashed with the rosewood color palette. The hose I left coiled on the side yard visual clutter. At first I thought it was a joke. Then I realized Evelyn wasn't just enforcing rules, she was targeting me. I filed every notice, refused to pay a cent, and sent polite but firm rebuttals. No response. Just more letters, more fines, and more stares from neighbors who used to wave. Then one Wednesday afternoon I got a text from Jasmine Rivera, the new HOA secretary, kind-hearted, sharp-eyed, and just 31. Marcus, it read, "They're planning something. Check your cameras." I opened the app, and there they were. Evelyn Duval, arms folded like she was the Queen of Thorns. Simon Granger, her silent enforcer, 50 years old ex-security guard with a clipboard and a permanent frown. And a third man, nervous, sweating, holding a metal case. A locksmith. I cranked the volume. "We're invoking the emergency access clause," Evelyn snapped. "There's been a reported gas leak." "I don't smell anything," the locksmith muttered. "Just do your job," she said. "We'll handle the inspection." The locksmith, his name was Peter Carmine, based on the badge clipped to his belt, hesitated, then knelt at my front door. My heart pounded as I watched him dismantle the lock I installed myself, the one my late father and I installed the day I moved in. Evelyn and Simon stood behind him, arms crossed, casting judgment on a house they didn't own. 20 minutes later, they were inside. Evelyn rifled through drawers in my home office. Simon took photos of my equipment, my books, my notes. "We need something that makes him look unstable," Evelyn hissed. "He's got electronics everywhere. Maybe we can say he's running some kind of surveillance racket." I stood there in the parking lot watching them tear through my life, and I wasn't sure whether to scream or laugh. They had no idea they were being recorded from 7 different angles. No idea their voices were captured in 4K audio. No idea that the man they were trying to push out of his own home had once designed surveillance tools for Navy SEALs. When I got home that night, the door didn't open. Of course it didn't. I stood on my own porch with a useless key in hand, my breath shallow and my fists clenched. The smell of Evelyn's perfume still lingered in the air. A text buzzed on my screen. Come to the HOA office to retrieve your new keys. Violations will be discussed. I didn't go. Not right away. First, I walked through the backyard and checked the cameras. They hadn't found the backups. Good. Then I called Camille Brooks, my next-door neighbor and a civil rights attorney. We'd spoken once before about the violations. She listened carefully as I told her everything. Document it all, she said. Every video, every quote. If they've entered your house without due cause, it's unlawful entry. I nodded. I'm already 5 steps ahead. The next morning, Jasmine sent me something even more disturbing. An internal HOA memo time-stamped 7 a.m., noting that several homes had recently gone up for sale following compliance issues. 3 families in the last 2 months, all cited for similar offenses: improper lighting, unapproved flowers, non-conforming yard decor. Camille dug deeper. The buyers of those homes all linked to shell corporations, each one connected to a development firm called Rosewell Development, a group rumored to be planning a luxury annex right where the back rows of the neighborhood stood. Jasmine confirmed what we feared. Evelyn had signed a side agreement. $50,000 bonus for every house transitioned to the Rosewell expansion zone. That explained everything. The lavender fines, the surveillance, the fake gas leak. It wasn't about rules. It was about pressure. I stood in my office staring at the footage of Evelyn and Simon walking through my living room. One paused at a picture of my mom sitting in the garden. She loved lavender all around her. Simon made a joke. Evelyn laughed. I clenched my jaw. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about every homeowner who planted flowers in good faith and got a notice instead of a thank you. It was about the principle. It was about people like my mother who believed their home was sacred. That night, I added new layers to my system: tripwire, alerts, facial recognition, encrypted backups to cloud drives in multiple states. Evelyn thought she had control, but she had no idea she was walking into the most fortified digital war she'd ever seen. Let them come. I was ready, and I wasn't leaving, not without a fight. It started with a lock. It escalated with a lie. And now it was war. The night after Evelyn Duval violated my home under the guise of a gas leak, I sat in the darkened control room I called my office. 3 monitors, 4 feeds, and a growing folder of digital receipts. Footage of her rifling through my desk drawers played on loop, her voice hissing through the speakers. Find something we can use. She thought she'd scare me into silence. She thought locks and fines and roses could smother resistance. But Evelyn made one mistake. She declared war on the man who designed the battlefield. The first thing I did was fortify. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I installed secondary motion-triggered cameras under my gutter's thermal sensors near the perimeter bushes and reinforced the system, powering all of it with an off-grid solar backup and cellular uplink. She could cut my power, she could turn off my water, but she'd never blind me. Not again. At 4:32 a.m., Jasmine Rivera texted me. Evelyn accessed the boardroom logs. Might be planning something else. Be safe. She didn't need to tell me twice. By sunrise, I was inside the HOA system I'd helped build, combing through server logs and access requests from the previous week. What I found made my stomach tighten. Multiple requests to schedule routine home inspections, all falsely time-stamped as emergency events, all signed off by Evelyn and Simon. 3 families, all gone now. All pushed out under the weight of silence and paperwork. I called Camille. They're not just breaking rules, I said. They're manufacturing events, fake leaks, electrical concerns. Then they barge in, document something bogus, and the next week the owners are selling. Camille exhaled slowly. We need something rock solid. One slip and she'll claim it's all paranoia. Then I'll give you a cathedral made of granite, I said. I wasn't bluffing. By noon, I'd set up keyword alerts across the system, flagging every message, memo, and access log Evelyn or Simon touched. That's when it hit: an email Jasmine forwarded to me that made the whole picture come into focus. Evelyn had authorized a $12,000 payment to a consulting firm, Rosenthal Solutions LLC, for landscape compliance strategy. That firm was registered to an address in Bend, Oregon. Camille checked the ownership records. It's under the name Miriam Rosenthal, she said. Guess who that is? I already knew. Evelyn Duval wasn't Evelyn Duval. She was Diana Rosenthal, a former HOA president from Oregon, who vanished 3 years ago when a nearly identical fraud investigation started closing in. Same playbook, same roses, same victims. Camille's voice hardened. She's running the same scam again, but this time we're not going to let her disappear. I spent the next 48 hours building the most damning case I've ever assembled: packet logs footage, timestamps, altered metadata in HOA meeting minutes, and real-time proof that Evelyn had altered official records to justify rules that never existed. But evidence alone wouldn't be enough. We needed something from the inside. And surprisingly, that crack came from Simon Granger. I found him sitting alone on the HOA clubhouse porch late one evening, nursing a black coffee and staring off into the glow of the rose lanterns. He didn't flinch when I sat beside him. "She's going to burn you too, you know," I said softly. He blinked. "She said you were paranoid, that you were some ex-military lunatic spying on people." "Maybe I am," I said. "But you broke into my house. You changed my locks. And the cameras don't lie." I handed him a tablet. On screen, a paused image of his face in my living room. He swallowed hard. "I didn't know she'd take it that far." "She always does," I said. "And when this falls apart, she'll put it all on you, unless you help me stop her first." He looked at the tablet again. Then, to my surprise, he nodded. "What do you need a recording? Your next meeting with her, I'll wire you up. If she confirms anything, payments, home entries, fake violations, we bring the whole scheme down." Camille handled the legal prep. Jasmine intercepted future memos to shield Simon's shift. We set the stage. Meanwhile, Evelyn, sensing unrest, called an emergency community meeting. The subject: unauthorized surveillance and resident privacy violations. Her target was obvious. She was going to try to paint me as a digital predator, accuse me of spying on neighbors, and turn the community into a pitchfork mob. I let her, because I was ready. On the day of the meeting, I arrived with a plain black backpack, wearing my navy dress blazer and a calm expression. Camille stood at my side, laptop in hand. Jasmine sat on the board bench, her face neutral, playing her part. Simon was already inside, visibly sweating under the pressure. The room was full, nearly every household represented. Evelyn stood front and center, backlit by rose-themed posters about community unity and safety. "We've recently discovered a disturbing situation," she began, her voice smooth and theatrical. "A resident, Marcus Whitaker, has installed multiple unauthorized surveillance devices, some aimed at neighbors' yards, others unknown in location. This is a gross violation of privacy and safety." She clicked a slide. A grainy image of one of my weatherproof outdoor cameras appeared. Gasps rippled. Then she added, "We'll be voting shortly on whether to initiate a forced property sale under HOA Bylaw 9.4. She smiled. "For the good of the rose." I stood slowly. "May I respond?" "This isn't a debate," she snapped. "It's a—" "Actually," Camille cut in, stepping forward, "under HOA transparency regulations, any accused party has the right to present counter evidence before a community vote." Evelyn's smile faltered. I moved to the projector. "I'd like to show you what the cameras actually recorded." I began playing the footage: Evelyn and Simon entering my home. No hazmat suits, no gas detectors. Her voice filled the room. "Find something we can use." The crowd went silent. I clicked again, Simon's wire recording. "They're offering me 50 grand per house," Evelyn's voice said. "All I have to do is make them miserable enough to leave." Another click, Camille presented Rosenthal's incorporation documents. Evelyn Duval is Diana Rosenthal, previously investigated for HOA fraud in Oregon under the same playbook. Evelyn's face turned to stone. "This is slander," she shouted. But the room was already murmuring. People were whispering names, families who'd vanished, fines they couldn't explain. Jasmine stood up. "I can confirm the financial documents. I was asked to backdate invoices. I refused." Just then the doors opened and 2 police officers stepped inside. "Mrs. Rosenthal," one said calmly, "we'd like you to come with us to answer some questions about financial misconduct and unlawful entry." Evelyn tried to speak, but Simon stood up. "She told me to change locks. She signed everything." The officers nodded. Evelyn's mouth opened, but no words came. As they led her out, one neighbor clapped, then another. Then a wave of applause erupted like a cleansing storm. Evelyn's kingdom of roses wilted in real time. After the meeting, I walked out into the cool air and sat on the same bench where I'd found Simon days earlier. Jasmine joined me. "You did it," she said. "No," I said. "We did." Camille approached, handing me a sealed envelope. "We'll start with civil claims next week, but you just gave that community its soul back." I looked out at the roses lining the sidewalks. I could finally breathe again. But something told me this wasn't over. Evelyn might have been arrested. Her shell companies might collapse. But power like hers doesn't die easily. That's why I wasn't shutting down my system anytime soon. If they came again, whoever they were, I'd be ready. And this time, they wouldn't make it past the lavender. Evelyn was led away in handcuffs, but I didn't exhale. Not yet. I knew people like her. People who wore power like perfume and thought rules were suggestions. You don't dismantle their empire with one police escort and a few recordings. You just shake the foundation. So that night, long after the applause died down and the HOA meeting room emptied, I walked my street in silence past homes where porch lights flickered gently and wind chimes whispered over flower beds. But I didn't see peace. I saw neighbors still uncertain. Windows cracked just enough for an eye to watch, but not enough for a wave. Fear lingers even when the source is taken away. And I wasn't wrong. It happened 3 nights later. My phone buzzed at 3:14 a.m. Perimeter breach detected. I was fully awake before the second alert. A second later, the feed loaded a figure moving toward my back door, hooded, hunched, but unmistakable. The same stiff gait, the same overconfidence. Evelyn. She was back. I tapped into the mic system, activated interior and exterior floodlights simultaneously, and watched as she squinted into the sudden wash of white. In her right hand, a screwdriver. In her left, a red plastic gas can. My stomach turned. This wasn't about spying anymore. This was about destruction, revenge. She tried the door. It didn't budge. Then she stepped into the small entry vestibule that connected the outer mudroom to the house itself, what I'd redesigned last month into a trap zone. I watched her turn back too late. The reinforced steel door behind her clicked shut, and then the voice began my voice. Pre-recorded, calm, unyielding, unauthorized access detected. You are being recorded. Law enforcement has been notified. Please remain still. Evelyn froze. Then she screamed, slammed her fists on the glass, tried both doors. Nothing. She was caged. I watched from my office, heart pounding but steady. I didn't feel fear. I didn't feel rage. Just resolve. A minute later, red and blue lights reflected off the lavender in my front yard. Officers rushed up my driveway, entered through the side gate, and found her exactly where I left her, caught between bad intentions and bad timing. One of them knocked on my front door a few minutes later. "Mr. Whitaker," he said. She was carrying accelerant and tools. "We're treating this as attempted arson." I nodded. "You should check her ankle monitor." She was out on bail. "Already did," the officer replied. "It was disabled. Looks like she cut it this evening. She won't get out this time." I watched them lead her to the cruiser. Her eyes met mine across the yard. No threats, no screaming this time. Just pure pathetic rage. And then she was gone. Again. Only this time it felt final. Over the next week, the community buzzed with updates. News vans came and went. HOA scandals didn't usually trend, but apparently a lavender-lined security trap and a failed gas can revenge plot made for great copy. Still, I kept my head down. Let the others tell the story. Jasmine, now acting HOA president, called for an emergency session the next day. By unanimous vote, all violations issued under Evelyn's tenure were rescinded. Fines were refunded, lock change fees reimbursed, and any pending property liens were erased from the record. Camille stood at her side, presenting documents, verifying the fraudulent financials that had funneled over $75,000 into shell accounts tied to Evelyn's sister. "We don't just need a new president," Jasmine said. "We need a new culture. No more secrecy. No more silence. From this day forward, every vote, every policy, every dollar spent will be public record." The applause was genuine this time. Deep, relieved. A cleansing kind of noise. Neighbors who hadn't looked each other in the eye for months were exchanging nods. Even laughter. The very next weekend, someone started planning a neighborhood gathering. A thank you, they called it, for the guy with the cameras. I politely declined the spotlight, but I couldn't avoid it for long. When I showed up at Rose Garden Park that Saturday, someone had spray-painted Lavender Liberation Day on a white banner strung between two oaks. There was barbecue folding chairs, even a jazz trio playing softly near the gazebo. Camille found me near the lemonade stand. "They want you on the board," she said. I laughed. "I've had enough HOA for 10 lifetimes." "You'd keep them honest," she said. "I'm better behind a screen. Let me keep the system safe. You do the rest." She nodded but didn't press. Instead, she looked out over the crowd. "You know, when I moved here, I thought this place was a dream. Quiet, clean neighbors who smiled. But fear can hide behind flowers too." I followed her gaze toward families now sitting freely on blankets, children running between rose beds. It was different now, lighter, less tense. The roses hadn't changed, but the people had. I didn't make a speech that day, didn't stand on the stage or hold a mic. But I did stop by the community board before I left and posted one sheet of paper, a digital security hotline, my new private firm. For any community facing HOA abuse or security overreach. Confidential, experienced, local. Within a week, I had 17 emails. 2 weeks later, I signed my first out-of-town consulting job. Camille smiled when I told her, "You're turning this into something bigger, aren't you?" I nodded. "It's not just about this street anymore. It's about every homeowner who's been told to shut up and comply." "And the lavender?" she asked, teasing. I glanced toward my home, where the trimmed lavender hedge curved along the walkway like a quiet violet warning. "It stays," I said. "It's a boundary and a reminder." That night, after the park cleared and the sun dipped behind the hills, I walked my street one last time, this time without surveillance apps or alerts. Just the scent of flowers and a rare kind of peace. Evelyn was behind bars awaiting trial. Her bail had been permanently revoked. Rosewell developers pulled out of the expansion deal, their name too radioactive now to touch the neighborhood, and the roses, they still bloomed. But now they weren't tools of control. They were just flowers. Beautiful, honest, harmless. Camille and I started spending more evenings together, usually on my porch, sometimes in silence, sometimes swapping stories. One night she looked over and asked, "What do you think your mom would say if she saw all this?" I smiled. "She'd say the lavender did its job." She raised an eyebrow. "Which is keeping the real monsters away." And she laughed, really laughed, and I realized something I hadn't felt in a long time. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was rebuilding. That fall, I expanded the lavender bed. Not because I needed to, but because I could. That more than anything felt like victory. In today's story, we witnessed what happens when a quiet professional refuses to be bullied, when justice is pursued not through rage, but through precision, patience, and truth. Marcus Whitaker didn't fight back with fists or fury. He fought with facts, with character, and with the quiet strength of knowing he had nothing to hide. His lavender hedge may have been small, but it became a symbol of boundaries, of dignity, and of resilience in the face of power abused. The lesson here is simple but powerful. Never underestimate your right to stand your ground, especially when you know you're standing on the side of truth. When people in positions of authority misuse their power, whether it's a homeowners association, a boss, or a public official, it can be intimidating. But as we saw with Marcus, even the most calculated schemes can unravel when exposed to the light of accountability. So if you're facing unfair treatment in your community, workplace, or personal life, remember, document everything, stay calm, and know your rights. Don't let fear silence you. Speak up and surround yourself with people who believe in integrity, just like Marcus did with Jasmine Camille, and even Simon, who found the courage to break free from complicity. Let this story also be a reminder that healing doesn't just come from tearing down the wrong, it comes from building something better in its place. Whether it's a neighborhood, a policy, or your own personal peace, justice is just the beginning. The true victory lies in restoration. Here at US Daily Story, we share these stories not just to entertain, but to inspire. To remind you that even when you feel small, even when you're just one voice in a crowd, your courage can ripple outward and create real change. To all our viewers, especially those who have ever felt powerless against systems or people who seemed untouchable, this story was for you. Your voice matters, your boundaries matter, and your fight, when guided by truth and principle, is never in vain. We want to sincerely thank you for watching, listening, and supporting U.S. Daily Story. Your comments, shares, and encouragement help us continue to tell these powerful, real-life inspired narratives that shed light on injustice and the quiet heroes who rise to meet it. If you found value in this episode, please consider liking the video, subscribing to our channel, and hitting the notification bell so you never miss another story where truth meets justice. Until next time, take care of yourself, protect your peace, and don't be afraid to plant your own lavender hedge, whatever that means for you. From all of us here at US Daily Story, thank you. Stay strong, stay aware, and never stop standing for what's right.